Imagine being lost, facing dangers you never imagined, only to be saved by the kindness of strangers. Quang experienced exactly that, rescued by villagers who risked everything for him. He shared a heartfelt farewell meal, expressing gratitude that words could barely contain. Guided by their directions, he braved forests, streams, and winding paths to finally return home, only to find it empty and silent. His mother and Linda, unaware of his return, were still out searching. Join us as we follow Quang's emotional journey of survival, courage, and the longing for reunion. Subscribe now to witness every heartfelt step of his path home. Quang sat quietly at the worn wooden table, the faint scent of home-cooked food mingling with the earthy aroma of the small village kitchen. The sunlight streamed through the narrow window, illuminating the simple dishes laid out before him: rice, fresh vegetables, and a few pieces of fish. To anyone else, it might have seemed like an ordinary, humble meal, but to Quang, it was a feast imbued with meaning far beyond its ingredients. Every bite carried the weight of gratitude. Every glance exchanged across the table spoke volumes of the bond forged in hardship. He looked around at the faces of the villagers who had saved his life, their eyes cautious yet warm, and his heart tightened with a mix of humility and reverence. For days, they had sheltered him from danger, offered comfort when his body ached and his spirit wavered. Now, sitting here, he felt an overwhelming urge to express the depth of his thanks. "I cannot begin to tell you how much this means to me," he said, his voice trembling slightly, yet steady enough to convey sincerity. "You took me in when I had nowhere else to turn. You gave me food, shelter, and hope. I am forever in your debt." The villagers exchanged shy smiles, a few shaking their heads as if to say their actions were nothing extraordinary. But Quang knew better. He had seen the risks they had taken, the quiet courage in their gestures, the selflessness that had saved him from harm. The meal continued, each bite a quiet meditation of gratitude. Quang observed how the villagers moved with practiced ease, preparing the food, serving each dish, yet never appearing hurried or burdened. It was an ordinary act to them, but extraordinary to him. He remembered the fear that had gripped him only hours ago, the sense of vulnerability that had made him doubt whether he would ever see his home again. And now, here he was, eating among these strangers-turned-saviors, feeling an intimate connection that defied words. He paused between mouthfuls, lifting his eyes to meet theirs. "Every day I spent here, I realized something important," he continued, his voice gaining strength. "Life is fragile, and kindness is rare. The world can be cruel, but your generosity reminded me that goodness still exists. I will carry this with me, always." One of the older villagers, a woman with silver-streaked hair and gentle eyes, reached out to place her hand on his. "You are part of this village now," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of wisdom and warmth. "We did what anyone would do. But I see your gratitude, it touches us more than you know." Quang nodded, fighting back the tears that threatened to fall, feeling both honored and humbled. As the meal drew to a close, he rose from his chair, his legs stiff but his spirit lifted. He walked around the table, shaking hands, exchanging bows, and offering final words of heartfelt thanks. "I will never forget what you have done for me," he said, looking each person in the eye, trying to imprint their faces in his memory. "You gave me a second chance at life, and I promise I will honor it. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart." The villagers smiled, some with quiet pride, others with a gentle blush, touched by the purity of his gratitude. Finally, Quang stepped outside, the sunlight warming his face, and took a deep breath of the fresh village air. Every sound, the rustling of leaves, the distant chatter of children, the soft clucking of chickens, seemed amplified in his mind, a symphony of life he had longed to hear. He turned one last time to wave goodbye, feeling the bittersweet tug of leaving those who had become his unexpected family. With his heart full, he began the journey back, guided by the directions the villagers had so patiently given him, carrying with him the memory of kindness that had saved his life, and a profound resolve to never take it for granted. Quang stepped onto the narrow dirt path that the villagers had pointed out to him, the fading sunlight casting long shadows over the uneven ground. Each step was deliberate, cautious at first, as if he were testing whether the world outside their village was as real as he remembered. The forest loomed on either side, dense and alive, the scent of wet earth and pine needles filling his lungs. Birds flitted through the canopy, their songs a delicate soundtrack to his solitary journey, and the distant rush of a stream reminded him of the village's kindness, a gentle echo of life beyond the dangers he had faced. Though the path was unfamiliar, he felt a strange sense of purpose. Every step carried him closer to home, closer to the warmth and safety he longed for. As he followed the winding trail, memories of his time in the village mingled with flashes of his life before. He recalled the comforting presence of the villagers, their quiet smiles, the way they had shared their modest meals with him without hesitation. And yet, alongside the gratitude, there was an undercurrent of anxiety. What if he had taken a wrong turn? What if the familiar streets of his city had shifted, or worse, what if the people he loved were no longer waiting for him? These thoughts pressed against him, heavy and insistent, but he shook them off, focusing on the rhythm of his footsteps, on the directions the villagers had described so carefully. Turn left at the fallen tree, follow the stream until the bridge, then you will see the road to the highway, he whispered to himself, repeating it like a mantra to steady his nerves. Hours passed, yet the path remained resolutely winding, the shadows deepening as night approached. Quang found himself crossing small wooden bridges, stepping over roots that threatened to trip him, and fording streams where the water nipped at his boots. Each obstacle tested his resolve, but he pressed on, driven by the thought of reuniting with those he loved. At times, fatigue threatened to slow him, his legs ached, and his throat was dry, yet the memory of the villagers' kindness and the promise of home fueled him. He recalled the woman's words, the one with the silver-streaked hair, "You are part of this village now, but your life waits beyond these woods." The words became a talisman, a reminder that the world was not only dangerous but also full of possibilities waiting to be claimed. Eventually, the dense forest began to thin, replaced by the faint outlines of the city skyline in the distance. Quang's heart quickened at the sight, familiar buildings, the glimmer of streetlights, the faint hum of distant traffic. Relief and excitement surged through him, mingled with a nervous anticipation. He quickened his pace, his steps now lighter, almost bouncing with the thought of reaching the familiar streets, the place he had longed for during his days of fear and uncertainty. The final stretch, a long stretch of asphalt leading toward his neighborhood, seemed to stretch endlessly at first. Yet each stride brought him closer to what he had missed, the comfort of home, the laughter of loved ones, the safety of familiarity. Finally, as he turned the corner onto his street, Quang felt a rush of emotions overwhelm him. The sight of his own house, slightly weathered but unmistakably his, brought tears to his eyes. He paused for a moment, letting the significance of the moment sink in. The journey had been long, exhausting, but he had made it. He stepped onto the familiar walkway, ran his hand along the gate, and inhaled the comforting scent of home. Yet, despite the joy of return, a quiet unease settled over him. The door was closed. No lights glimmered from the windows. The silence of the house was palpable, and a sudden, gnawing worry took root. Where were they? His mother? Linda? They should have been here to greet him. And then it hit him. Perhaps they did not know he had returned. Quang stood there, at the threshold of home, heart pounding with a mixture of relief, hope, and a touch of apprehension. The journey had been long, fraught with danger and uncertainty, but he had succeeded. And yet, the story was not complete. Somewhere, beyond the familiar walls of his home, those he loved were still searching for him, unaware that he had already found his way back. With a deep breath, he pushed open the door, stepping inside, ready to face whatever awaited, knowing that the reunion, whenever it came, would be all the more precious for the trials he had endured. Quang pushed open the door, the familiar creak of the hinges greeting him like an old friend. The house was quiet, eerily quiet. The faint smell of home-cooked meals still lingered in the air, mingling with the soft dust motes dancing in the golden evening light. He stepped inside slowly, his boots leaving faint impressions on the wooden floor, each step echoing in the empty rooms. The living room, the kitchen, even the staircase leading upstairs, all were exactly as he remembered, yet the absence of life made the space feel hollow, like a theater set waiting for actors to return. A pang of worry tightened in his chest. Where are they? He whispered under his breath, his voice almost swallowed by the silence. His mind raced as he retraced the familiar sights of his home. The framed photos on the wall, the well-worn sofa, Linda's favorite throw pillow on the couch, they were all here, unchanged, yet the people he loved were missing. His heart ached at the thought that his mother and Linda might be out there, searching tirelessly, unaware that he had already made it back. The thought of them worrying, calling his name into the wind, filled him with both sorrow and determination. He realized how fragile the threads of life could be. He had survived danger, found his way home, yet the reunion he longed for was still just beyond reach. Quang sank onto the sofa, letting out a long, trembling breath. The adrenaline that had carried him through the forest, across streams, and along winding paths now ebbed, leaving only a quiet, aching fatigue. He closed his eyes and allowed his memories to wash over him, the villagers who had saved him, the kindness that had kept him alive, the directions that had guided him home. And yet, the most vivid images were those of his mother's gentle smile and Linda's comforting presence. He imagined them, searching the streets, calling his name, hearts heavy with worry. He could almost hear his mother's voice carried on the breeze, gentle yet anxious. "Quang, where are you?" And Linda's laughter. Normally a melody of warmth, now tinged with concern, reached him only in his mind. Time stretched slowly. The house remained silent, save for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Quang felt a strange mixture of relief and restlessness. He was home, safe at last, yet the emptiness gnawed at him. He walked from room to room, touching the familiar surfaces, as if each contact might summon them back. The thought struck him, perhaps he should leave a note, but then, what if they found it too late? His heart ached at the possibility that he might miss their search entirely, that their worry might continue even as he sat mere steps away. The emotional weight of near separation, the fragile threads of timing and fate, pressed upon him in a way nothing else had during his perilous journey. Finally, Quang moved to the front window and looked out onto the street. The evening sky was painted with streaks of pink and orange, the city slowly transitioning into night. Somewhere out there, his mother and Linda were moving, searching tirelessly, their steps driven by love and concern. He pressed his hand against the glass, imagining them doing the same, hoping, waiting. A sense of quiet resolve settled over him. He would wait, patiently, knowing that the reunion would come, sooner or later. And when it did, the joy would be magnified, made sweeter by the trials they had all endured, by the fear and hope that had carried them through these long hours of separation. Quang sank back onto the windowsill, gazing at the fading light. The journey home had ended, but the story was not over. In the stillness of his empty house, he felt the weight of love and longing pressing against him, a reminder that the heart's bonds could not be broken by distance or time. And in that quiet, he allowed himself to hope, to believe that soon, he would hear the familiar voices calling his name, feel the warmth of their embrace, and know that the fragility of life only made the moments of reunion more precious. The night grew darker, but Quang sat there, a solitary figure in his home, holding on to the certainty that love, unyielding and patient, would guide them back to each other.